Hello, I'm Dr. Sam Hancock of the Emerald Planet and Emerald Planet TV. We come to you on a week-to-week basis from Washington, D.C. in the United States as we look around the globe in 144 different nations, looking for those 1,000 best practices, the technology, services, and products that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And as we have a planet of 9 billion people by 2038 and possibly 12 to 13 billion by the end of this century, how are we going to be able to take care of all these people on planet Earth? And that's what Emerald Planet's all about. We come to you looking at the solutions, the best practices from around the globe as we create the Emerald Planet. Hello, welcome to the Emerald Planet. We're making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And seeing the long-term impacts of climate change. We're glad to have you. Thank you for being with us.
Looking around the globe for those 1,000 best practices, we're looking for countries in which they are actually addressing the issue of water and how do we create new water for expanding populations in very dry conditions. We have Dr. Daniel Kurtzman, who is with the Aquifer Research Organization of Israel, and they've been working on and dealing with the lack of water since the beginning of the Israeli state. And Danny, welcome to the Emerald Planet TV.
Thank you, Sam.
Looking at your organization, the Agricultural Research Organization, why is that so important? And how does that fit into the marcelo research projects?
Okay, the Agricultural Research Organization is generally dealing with agriculture, but within it we have a few institutes. I'm a member of the Institute of Soil, Water, and Environmental Sciences, and I'm a subsurface hydrologist, so I'm in charge of water resources research. Well, agriculture in arid and semi-arid areas was always about irrigation water and allocating water. So therefore, water resources research and managed aquifer recharge as a research concerning water resources is we're always interested in.
Mm-hmm. Now, looking at this complicated chart as far as the marcelo and the MAR, Managed Aquifer Recharge, why is this chart actually so important for the state of Israel and all of its surrounding neighbors?
Using aquifers, the main role of aquifers in the Managed Aquifer Recharge operation, in my point of view, is the storage. When we use the subsurface, we get cheap and large storage because land is very expensive. Constructing surface storage is very expensive. And when we put the water in the subsurface, it's almost for free, although it's not a perfect reservoir. We don't have any concrete walls in the aquifers, but water flows in the aquifers slow. So we can store the water there between seasons or between drought years and rainy years, and for this time scales, these are excellent reservoirs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, looking at the Sea of Galilee as far as desalination projects, floods, and wastewater treatment, how do these three sources of new water really play a role in providing a steady and reliable source of water for the whole country?
Well, as you see in the picture there, in black is what we call the Israeli coastal aquifer. Now, this is the aquifer that was first exploited since the end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century. The drilling technology became available in this part of the world, and we drilled many wells in this aquifer and developed villages, towns, and city, and the metropolitan of Tel Aviv on these waters. By the middle of the 20th century, the water in this aquifer were very low level and below sea level, and water from the sea started to flow into the aquifer and salinize some wells in Tel Aviv and other places. Therefore, we had to seek for new water resources, like the Sea of Galilee was connected to the system in the 1960s. So the water from the Sea of Galilee not only flowed in the national water carrier to the households and fields for irrigation, but also flowed directly to recharge the aquifer. Same for floods. We managed to catch some ephemeral floods from some streams and redirect the water to the aquifer instead of letting them being wasted to the sea and salinized. In the 1970s, 1980s, we realized large cities are large sources of water. Although this is not water for drinking quality, but it's good for irrigation. And our main managed aquifer recharge operation today is letting secondary effluents of the Tel Aviv metropole infiltrate into this aquifer and then pumped they're of much higher quality and then sent to the Negev for irrigation.
Now, looking at floods, this is something you don't really think of floods in Israel, but you certainly have them. How do these really supplement what you need as far as recharging your aquifers?
Well, in Israel, we hardly have any rivers that have a base flow. All the flow in the streams and rivers are ephemeral. That means only after rainy days in the winter we have such floods. So, especially in the 1950s, 1960s, and until today, it looked as a waste of water for us letting these floods flow to the Mediterranean. So we managed to have two very elegant managed aquifer recharge system in which we divert the floods, let them percolate to the aquifer, and then pump them in the summer for household and irrigation use.
Mm-hmm. Now, looking at wastewater treatment plants, how do they fit into the schema along with your seawater desalination plants? So let me go back to the wastewater treatment plants.
Okay. Today, a large portion of irrigation water in Israel are based on treated wastewater. Mm-hmm. Actually, about half of the water allocated for agriculture is wastewater treatment plants. And the largest project is taking all the treated wastewater of the Tel Aviv metropole, which is about a third or 30% of all the wastewater in Israel, and taking the effluents of a secondary wastewater treatment plant that we have south of Tel Aviv, it's called the Shafdan, and letting them percolate to sands that we have, sand dunes south of Tel Aviv, and then pump them through dedicated wells, and they all go through one red pipe, large diameter pipe, 130 kilometers south to the Negev desert, and we irrigate them, and actually this project enabled moving the center of mass of food production in Israel south to desert land, to cheap land, before it was in the center where the prices of land are higher. And another thing, agriculture also contaminates groundwater, especially with nitrates. In this way, when we irrigate in the desert, we don't have an exploitable aquifer below. So it's better to have the intensive agriculture down there in the desert, and Tel Aviv wastewater is the source of most of the agriculture there.
Mm-hmm. Now, seawater desalination is a very expensive type of water, but yet it's still critically important for Israel. What are you learning from your research that actually can apply to other desert or semi-area countries, and also may be available on the seacoast for cities across the world.
Yeah, okay. Well, when I said storage, towards the 21st century, Israel realized no matter storage, we need more freshwater sources. Mm-hmm. And the reverse osmosis technology came to a point that it met the Israeli economy, and the people the household people, not farmers, can pay for this water. And since the last 15 years, a great deal of the fresh water that we drink and some of what we use for irrigation is desalinated seawater. The thing is, of course, 99% of the time, the desalinated seawater are produced and put into the national water carrier, and they're used directly. But there are points in time where you don't want to stop the very large desalination plants, as you see, from working. But the demand for water is not as high, like in the winter. Mm-hmm. Or when the national water grid goes through, you have to fix it. At these times, we take the water and store it in the aquifer. Mm-hmm. And what we learned from our research that the quality of the water improves with this process because the desalinated water lacks some important minerals like calcium and magnesium. And when we let this water to percolate through the soil and the sediment, they gain from the rocks, from the sediment, some of these minerals, and they also mix with natural groundwater. And the product we get after pumping is, in terms of mineralization of the water, is a better product than the pure desalinated water.
I see. Now, what is this about marcelo, cheap water storage?
Well, marcelo is the project all four of us that are interviewed today are involved in, and it all deals with managed aquifer recharge. Well, I put this slide because I want to emphasize what I think is the most important role of managed aquifer recharge, and it's the cheap water storage. So that's not for marcelo, it's only a logo of our project, but it is. And the second most important thing that I just talked about it, that managed aquifer recharge is also a good and cheap water treatment. Mm-hmm. So these are the two things I believe are most important in managed aquifer recharge.
Okay, we're going out on this. We're just going to leave this up because we've run out of time. What do you see for the managed aquifer recharge as a system across the world, say being adopted over the next 5, 10, or 15 years, and you have about 20 seconds. We got to be quick.
Yeah, well, today about only 1% of the water abstracted in the world is water that was recharged, managed, not naturally. Now in Israel, it's about 10 or 15% of the water. So it's still, and it will come more in semi-arid Mediterranean areas. It's a way to save water, and as I said, store water and treat water, that I'm sure it will grow.
Okay, fantastic. This is Dr. Daniel Kurtzman, the Agricultural Research Organization of Israel. Thank you for being with us as we create the Emerald Planet.
You're welcome.